This is the Ferg Running Channel, your home for endurance. Today, I'll give you 4 tips for running a sub 3-hour marathon, or as I wanted to title it, how I cut an hour from my marathon time. Okay, because this is a longer video, first, I'm going to give you the highlights, and please do check the description for all the links. There are so many sources for this one. What did I do? First, I prehydrated. Second, I lost body fat. Third, I ran workouts of longer than 2 hours. Fourth, I did invest in the very best carbon-plated or super shoes, okay? So the backstory is that in 2021, early 2021, I got a job offer in Lehigh, Utah. I moved there, and there was a marathon coming up nearby in Provo. So that was the Utah Valley Marathon. It is a beautiful or scenic course, point to point, that finishes in downtown Provo. Great spot, lovely size race. Anyway, so I've been training plenty during this COVID era. I think a lot of us did this just for mental health, to be frank. And I was quietly confident that I would get 3 hours, that I was an athlete in the past, and I believed in myself. Anyone who knows the marathon also knows that the 3 hours, it is a respected threshold in the running world. People know 3 hours is a difficult challenge. If you can go under, especially if you're a woman, that's a great time, okay? So what happened? It did not go as planned. So I ran 3 hours 47, actually, over 3 hours 47. And so it was an extremely painful one. I ran faster than 3-hour pace through the first half. I think I went maybe through the first, let's say, 10 miles, and then I went through pretty much bang on 130. So I ran hugely positive splits, an immensely slower second half. And it was really painful. I struggled to finish. I had to walk some of the way. There was a lady about maybe 5 miles from the finish who was giving out ice cubes, and she was a godsend. It was really lovely putting ice on my head. But so, okay. So I went back 2 years later. I drove from my home here in Fort Collins over to Utah to Provo, 8-hour drive, and to vindicate myself. And I ran 2 hours 38:52. That's the chip time. The gun time was 2 hours 39:02. So, and I managed to win the Masters event. So I took off well over an hour from my time, and I also went way under 3 hours. So that's why I'm addressing it. What did I do differently? Countless things. However, I'm going to give you 4 that I think were particularly pertinent and applicable to many other people. This episode is brought to you by the Lydiard Foundation, lydiardfoundation.org. The Lydiard Foundation offers coach certification and education in endurance training in the tradition of Arthur Lydiard, who was also from New Zealand, my native country. The late Arthur Lydiard was just the leader, the innovator who brought modern endurance training into to fruition, and his legacy is preserved in this organization. It is led by the phenomenal 4-time Olympian Lorraine Muller, my mentor. I am exceedingly pleased to work with him. I've passed level 2. I'm working on level 3 myself. So you cannot find a better source for learning the Lydiard method than the Lydiard Foundation. Go to lydiardfoundation.org, use the discount code FERG, F-E-R-G. This prehydration one, I dehydrated in 2021, and pretty much everyone does as far as I'm concerned. One way to test this or to get an assessment is to go and run a half marathon in training, pick a time and ideally weather that would be similar to what you might expect in your race. Weigh yourself before, weigh yourself right after, get the difference, and then add to that difference any fluids you consumed during your training. And in my case, I'll lose easily 5 pounds, right? So that would be 10 pounds over a full marathon distance, okay? And that means that almost everyone is going to struggle to get enough fluid, even if you drink at every single aid station. That means that heavy drinking the day, 2 days before, and especially the morning, is crucial. How you go about that is up to you. There are various approaches. I really like the approach offered in this book, Optimum Sports Nutrition by Michael Colgan. Chapter 2 is excellent. It addresses water quality. And Michael Colgan, I got to meet him in person years ago. He also brought my attention to the need for distillation or clean water. Yes, I do promote and use every day pure water distillers, or I use a distiller. Go to mypurewater.com if you want to get a distiller for cleanliness and safety of water. And the discount code is FERG, F-E-R-G. The second thing I did was lose body fat, okay? In 2021, I was about 220 to 230 pounds hovering. And in 2023, I was right on 200 pounds, okay? So there's been all sorts of experimentation to assess the magnitude of less body fat on racing speed in the marathon. And a very rough rule of thumb is that every pound you lose is almost a full minute off your time. So in my case, I lost 20 to 30 pounds. That's easily 20 minutes off your time. It is huge. It is a game changer, okay? Now, there are different approaches to getting there. The simplest is intermittent fasting, and in my view, most effective. And I will include a link below to The Mystery of Weight Loss, which is a great podcast introduction from Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World. It's eye-opening, and he recommends less frequent eating and fewer refined carbohydrates, which is not exactly rocket science, but it needs to be said, especially in the modern era where people are just snacking all the time. And even I'm guilty of this. When you work from home, you can snack way too frequently. And Matt Fitzgerald has a book on this called Racing Weight, How to Get Lean for Peak Performance. I have this in the mail, and I'll review it soon. Okay, number 3, train beyond 2 hours. It might surprise people, but prior to a year or two back, I didn't really train more than, let's say, 90 minutes, an hour and a half. And even that was rare. In general, I'd run between half an hour and 60 minutes. And even when I was a serious rower, I never really went much more than an hour and a half. The marathon, if you're going for 3 hours, it's a 3-hour event. You need all the endurance you can get. And it's not an accident. Well, let me just say that 2 runs of 45 minutes are not as good as 1 run as 90 minutes. The 90 minutes one will give you more stimulus. And if you go beyond 2 hours, beyond 120 minutes, you will get tremendous stimulus for adaptation in your body, okay? And it's not an accident that the 20-miler or even longer has become a tradition among the best elite athletes. And if you read the autobiographies of great marathoners such as Lorraine Moller, my mentor, and Bill Rogers, maybe the most famous marathon runner in the U.S. history, he ran, I think, 125 miles on average per week when he was training for the Boston Marathon, and much more. And he would go for long runs, easily 20 miles, 25 miles. So that going beyond 2 hours was a game changer for me. It really gave me the strength to finish strong and not just survive through the race, okay? Number 4, buy super shoes. Look, I resisted this, and many people do. One, I just, let's say philosophically, I didn't like the fact that these shoes were changing the sport, that they were making it less universal, less timeless. The comparisons between this generation and a previous generation could no longer be made. The times couldn't be compared so easily. However, the fact is, super shoes are here to stay. And what I mean are the carbon-plated shoes with, I guess, new forms of cushioning, ushered in by Nike in the mid to late 2010s. There are different estimates, and it gets a bit difficult to calculate because apparently the super shoes can help you with your recovery and training, not just in racing. However, one of my colleagues believes, or training partners believes, that you can get as much as 10 minutes off your time through super shoes. Now, I don't agree with that magnitude. My guess is between 30 and maybe up to 90 seconds for the elites. And for recreational runners who are running a much longer time, they would get maybe a minute to maybe up to 2 or 3 minutes off their time. Now, it's not huge. The magnitude is not huge, but it is meaningful. And many people will scoff at the $250 or between $200 and $300 you might pay for these shoes. If you consider the sophistication of the technology, the outcome they provide, and relative to the cost of everything else, they're a no-brainer, okay? Nike has had a slight first mover advantage. They really did lead the way in this. In the last, let's say, 6 years, all of the brands have the major running brands have aggressively sought to catch up. And in my opinion, they've done a relatively good job. So at this point, yes, Nike was the innovator, but I would just go with the brand that you feel most comfortable with and not get too tied up in which brand is better or worse, but rather one that just fits best for you. Now, in my case, I have long trusted ASICS, and I have run about 200 miles in the Metaspeed Sky, which I bought 1 year ago, in terms of 200 miles of racing. And I actually just got a new pair of these in a lovely new color, the Metaspeed Sky. And so I do recommend these. I use them and I like them a lot. I've had no problems with them, and they look beautiful too. And so Cam Levins, the top Canadian runner, top North American marathon runner really, who ran a 205 this year, he also uses these. So I see these as basically a peer or comparable to the Nike shoes. Okay, so actually one more thing about these. The Metaspeed Sky is for stride runners. Targeted. The differences between the Metaspeed Sky and the Metaspeed Edge are minimal, but the Sky is targeted for stride runners, those who lengthen their stride to get more speed, and the Edge is targeted towards shufflers or people who increase their cadence or number of strides to increase their speed, okay? So the 4 actions I referred to, the prehydration, the body fat loss, the beyond 2-hour runs, and the super shoes or carbon-plated shoes, these really do just scratch the surface. There are so many things I could add to this and want to add to this, and a round 2 with 4 more is in the offing. But in the meantime, thanks so much for listening to this, and please do leave comments and subscribe. And cheers, I look forward to sharing more insights with you in the future.